especially I would say that the things that maybe are more relevant to us as we buy land, and now we are saddled with the issues that come about after buying the land. So without much ado, Doctor, if I can see your face so that I know that you are online or viewing. Hello, Doctor. Hello.
Yes, hello, I'm here. Let me see your face just for a moment. Yeah, I'm here.
I'm also seeing you.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you so very much, Doctor, for making time
Yeah.
for us again today. You were with us last week, and I learned something new. I learned new things, and I keep saying we learn things every day.
Every day, yeah.
So welcome once again to our land issues in Ghana program that we call in the local parlance Asaseho and Sem. And like we all have been touting, everybody seems to have a story to tell. I have worked in the land sector for years, but I also have my story to tell that I've bought land before and lost it. And like you said about E.D. Combe, the renowned lawyer, he also bought land and lost it. But I think that we don't have to stand there and say that that is how things are, so it should continue. But I think what can help us is information. Like we all know, information is power. When you have information about anything, the more information you have about it, the more control you have over the issues and the more options that are available to you to look at. So indeed, Doctor, thank you very much. What I remember very well about last week, if I'll just say just one word about it, was a conflict between the families and the stools. And I remember you giving an example of land at Agbogba, but those who are the family heads are maybe Teshi. So those who are on the land may not know that the Teshi chief has given out the land or head of family, and they also want to assert their rights over the land, and then the conflicts keep going and coming, and then the poor buyer becomes the victim of that. I think we would continue. I think you did very well and you broke it down for us. So today I think we are going to continue the discussions. Let me just say in tree that me mamu na akwa ba di aba Vital Ghana radio program. So I no every Saturday, mimi de bia no aya to no land issues in Ghana. I can say asase ho nsem. Na me fia say me ka say me so biara wona na asem bi otimi ka wa asase ho nsem. Aye ndwuma se bi se yeto se Ghana de oto asase na aye nsem bebree. But me gidi say ye wo ihumoi ananti ase and Bruni can information, legal information about the land issues now. It's me wow, Emma and Kebeya Quadanda and as a Sabesi form no ama and yes, and to me free would out me free down for be no mwina ababa bitiebi because na wunim no and then it me boa ma SSA way. Last week Yame and Domi and your penika see pa ebeka no a former executive secretary of the Lands Commission, so ye more FAO. Emma ochre niema bebre se na meka me anso mesua niema fufuru bi na de bia ka se yesua ade fufuru nso de bia nyame adome na so wa ma ne ho kwan se ye oba be ne bedi mpese ho ewo nsase ho nsem last week ni de meka se omaye kan obro ni beka ne se policy issues niema se na atete records ni ho papa records no ho kra ebi wo ho na afrafra ebi wo ha lap land administration project yeah niema ewo wo mu na ade ochre niema bebre nti ne de emi se nkomo no ye behwe se ye be ma doctor ma na say okay wa fa musa no akoto asase na e de nso current na ya ma ye ho adwuma wo lanza na wo document ko to wo lanza etim chesa emi se ho sankita ho no na emi se bia be ma doctor boy ni ho se na e bia ne me bia ma yesa na ne me bia sisi hu ne nya ho ti ase etimi aboa man na asase epese to anaya ton ye hu necessary ye wo hu. Nti doctor, welcome once again and I think we can quickly set the ball rolling.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is Atajemfi. Yeah.
Okay, so I think I'll start off by saying that after people buy land, they buy it mostly through friends and relations. And then the usual issues come up. I mean, they ring and there are stories to be told and all those things. Why do you think those issues come up? Sometimes it even leads to breakup of family relationships and friendships and all that. But why is it that we buy the land and there are all the issues that come about with it? Can you help us a bit with that?
Thank you, Mrs. Satajenfi, and my warm greetings to all the listeners. It's always a pleasure to be able to meet and share thoughts. Na yatua to agene na say unya information na papa na unya kwankyere no papa wankoto ohaw mu. Last week me can say asase to no ente sɛ sɛbio sɛ woakɔtɔ shirt ɛwɔ store mu na wahyɛ na wahoro na wato asɛn hɔ na wahyɛ na tete na asa dabi asase de wotɔto hɔ no ma ebia mfe aduonu koraa nsa na nsɛm bi a ɛwɔ asase no mu ebepuepue na obi ehu nti na ɛsɛ wokɔtɔ asase a ɛsɛ woto bo na wohwehwɛ mu yi ansa na wato mpempi no wɔn a wɔwɔ amanɔne aburukyirifo na diaspora fo no wɔba bɛtɔ asase a ɛyɛ na mmerɛ asɛm nti wonya kwan ɛnhwehwɛ nneɛma mu yiye nti bebree na wɔn agya w'akyi ama wɔn nuanom wɔagya w'akyi ama wɔn namfonom wɔagya w'akyi ama wɔn ayɔnkofo wɔn classmates sɛ o asase a metɔ yi mentumi nwie documents no nti mesrɛ wo a di akyi ma me wode ɛba sɛ biribi akora sɛ wɔsensan akora wode sensan ma me ɛho sika ni na wagya hɔ no kɔ yɛntɔ asase saa asase no ɛho nkrata na wobɛsensan no nyinaa ɛyɛ contract a wɔsensan na ɛsiane sɛ ɛyɛ contract a wɔsensan no nti na ɛsɛ sɛ mmara a yɛde danda contract na yɛde yɛ contract ho adwuma no edi mu ɛno na ɛsɛ yɛde yɛ sɛ adwuma no nti na yɛdi kan sɛ wotɔ asase na wagya w'akyi ama wo nua bi anaa wo dɔfo bi anaa wo yɔnko bi sɛ ɔnyɛ nkrataa no ma wo na sɛ ɛba sɛ ɔnsensan koraa ɔnsan ma wo a ɔntumi mfa ne pɛ ɛnkɔsensan nkrataa no ɛmma wo sɛnea ɔpɛ no na mmom mmara mu no ɛsɛ sɛ wode tumi no ɛhyɛ ne nsa sɛ mema wo saa tumi sɛ asase a metɔ yi di anim na ka ho asɛm ma me na tua ka ma me na sensan ho krataa nyinaa ma me yɛfrɛ no power of attorney nti ɛsɛ woyɛ saa nhyehyɛ no nkrataa no ɛma saa nipa ko no wode ma no na wosensan ma no ɔde bɛkɔ aban mu na wakɔ stampo so sɛnea ɛbɛyɛ a wɔkyena bi a asɛm bi ba ho a wobɛtumi de akɔgyina court sɛ evidence nti woyɛ saa power of attorney ni wie a ansa na nipa ko no wobɛtumi agyina so na ɔde adi dwuma no ma wo na sɛ last week nso meka bio sɛ wokɔtɔ asase a krataa no ɛnyɛ obi biara ɛnyɛ wɔn a wɔprepare wɔtete kwankyɛn a wɔyɛ oath no ɛnyɛ wɔn na wɔbɛbɔ nkrataa no ma wo ɛsɛ ɔde ma lawyer no na lawyer no hwehwɛ ne nyinaa mu na wɔn sɛ wɔama power of attorney a ɔde power of attorney no ahyɛ nkrataa no mu ahyɛ contract no mu sɛ saa contract yi a yɛyɛ yi papa Kwesi Labi ɔde n'anusɛm na ne tumi a ɔwɔ asaa contract ɔsesan mu nyinaa ama Kwesi Adu sɛ Kwesi Adu ɛnsensan krataa no ma no nti ɛwɔ ayi indenture na mo nyinaa nim sɛ ɛfrɛ indenture ɛwɔ mu saa sɛ Kwesi Adu na ɛsɛ sɛ ɔsensan na Kwesi Adu nso atumi agyina so na wasensan nsɛm bebree sisi a nkrɔfo atotɔ nsase na wasensan ama wɔn nuanom na wɔn ayɔnkofo na nsɛm yi akɔpue court na afei yɛde signature no ɛtoto ho no yɛhu sɛ nea ne din ɛwɔ nkrataa no mu no ɛyɛ ne signature na ɛwɔ nkrataa no mu wɔn nti na afei na akɔyɛ fraud asɛm na akɔ undermine the integrity of the document nti yɛsrɛ sɛ wotɔ asase na wagya w'akyi ama wo yɔnko anaa wo nua sɛ ondi akyi ma na ɔnsensan krataa ma so ondi akyi ma koraa fatumi bi ɛhyɛ ne nsa na ɔkyena manso bi ba watumi wankɔgyina bi anka sɛ mea mepɛ na mede kɔyɛ adwuma mpɛpi nea wɔka ne sɛ adwuma ɔde ma me no wamfa sika bi anka ho nti mea me sika na mede atututu ho akwan afa car akɔ lance akɔfa surveyorfo yakɔyɛ inspection yakɔyɛ sɛ na akɔyɛ nwonwonan asɛ abusua bebree nti nea wopɛ sɛ wo yɔnko anaa wo nua anaa udofo ana obia oye ma wo no fa ne nyina gu nkrata so na sensan ase na won stamp so na fe nipa ko no anya tumi agina so adi dwuma na ma wo nipa ko no so ahu tumi na wo de ma no the extent of the powers that you have delegated to him na watumi ayen pepepe anye saa e de ohaw ebe bro nti se wan fa power of attorney no ko amma no na echiri ono ad ni tumi koye no sensan na fe odin na won krata no so nso signature na nya wo de a e de ohaw bebre ba nti mesre eya yemfa eno no saa okwan no so ne yemfa enye nkrata no na nye se uba obja wachi ma obi na o feel se waya ma e de nsam bebre eba nti kakra mekane bio so a mekane mpempi no eya na yepese yeto asase a yeso asase me to ama me ba nti dashi mini ho a na me ba no amre eye adwen papa na so sa wo ba no onyin ya obetumi asensan contract na umfa wo ba ni din enye nkrata no nti me ba no wadi mfi du mienu 12 years only Medinidin Aye, as if said the contract is being signed between him and whoever is selling the land. And then when they finish, I sign my signature on the contract in place of my son. And also, and yet, fraudulent. Ghana Mra Yedi Juman say Abofra ND 21 years means enter into contract maning ye or a minor. It is a open say auto asase na wode ma wo ba ana wabusuani bi ana wode chobi kura ye wo kwan a wofa so a woye you can hold the land in trust for your son na no watumi asensan ne nyina ma eno lawyer no bebo no wa design na se wa mahyehyɛ saa trust document no pepepe na ochina bi woni ho a obi anim say even though asase na wo di mu no wotoma wo ba nti wo ba no any beneficiary no na yesese ne nsa kan bia ne nua bi ese ne nsa kan bia obenya ne nyina pepepe e wo asase no mu nti Mrs. Atajemfi medibesia saa na esese okwan ankrofo fa so na otonton sase ne ma obia nkonkoto asase nja na chi mo bia se o de mekọ eye kra o de sensan ma me yen sensan masa e de nsem bebrebe ba manso ba na be dedi se asa document ya forge a wa hwepe na osika akohye that's it.
Okay. The doctor may say you better was say just for those who may not be very conversant with the tree, I'll just say that doctor has explained that it's important that people do not hurriedly just buy land. And he gives an example that land is not bought like the way we buy a shirt that you would wear today and tomorrow you hang it. It takes a lot of diligence and patience, and that a lot of time because people need to travel back to their workplaces in the US, UK, Germany, wherever they are, they invariably fall on others to continue the process for them, friends and families. But by law, and I think we have said this before, the process that is required is to give them a power of attorney. I think, Doctor, in the course of our discussions, we can try and again discuss how it is done. There should be a power of attorney. And even after the power of attorney, the proper procedure should be that it should be written in the document itself.
Yeah.
That this document was purchased per the power of attorney that was given to Kwesi Mensah. That is what has enabled Kwesi Mensah to sign. And he kept saying that sometimes you see that somebody's name, but then the signature may not be that of the person whose name is on the document. So when issues come up, it is so easy for the other party to say, well, but you are not the signatory. And invariably, the court will read fraud into it. And sometimes, too, what comes up is that people buy these lands and they buy it in trust for their children in the best with the best of motives and intent. The law provides that the person should reach the age of majority. It used to be 21 years, but I think the law is now looking at it more like 18 years one can hold property. Otherwise, then you should do it in trust because that will also become a basis that will set these things aside at the courts. So we should take note of. These are basic information that I think it's so very important that we try and get hold of them so that we will be able to question and know, even if you don't come and talk to me. And doctor, thank you for repeating that they need to talk to a lawyer. I want to make them feel comfortable that sometimes it's the best thing you can do. you won't be throwing your money away at all. I mean, the headaches that are involved, definitely you'll be better off talking to a lawyer. Doctor, I think that one of the things people go through, or some of the things people go through, is that after they buy the land, it looks like they don't know whether they should go forward or come backwards because the records or what they are informed as queries or the inability for the process to continue is sometimes it can't be explained because you'll be told that, oh, your land falls on somebody's land. So they may have to do a composite plan or the plan has to be done again. Sometimes too, you hear that there is a executive instrument, vested land. You hear that there are judgments. So you realize that the office that you've sent the documents to, it seems they are not able to work on it the way. And you don't even seem to appreciate why all these things are in the records. It is it was supposed to be that at any point in time there should be one legal owner of land. Doctor, what can you say about this and why is a situation like that? And I think especially about this executive instrument, invested instruments, if you can let us know a bit more why these frustrations come about.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Atajenfi. Last week, I mentioned that the Lands Commission does not have records on all lands in the country.
Doctor, that is a very sorry to cut you, but that is a serious statement. How can the whole land
Yes,
not have records on the land that they've been constitutionally mandated to take care of on behalf of the people of Ghana
yes. Mrs.
all these
Atajenfi,
years?
we have to understand the functions of the Lands Commission. You see, land is owned. We have four categories of land that we have. We have the primarily we have the customary lands, and then we have the state lands. We
Mm,
have the
mm,
stool lands, the customary lands. We can have the stool lands, the clan lands, the family lands, the stool family lands, private lands, and then the state lands are the lands that are managed by the commission. Strictly speaking, the customary lands are vested in the customary owners, the chiefs, the heads of families, and they hold the land in trust for the people or their subjects. So until such people, such owners submit whatever documents they have to the
mm,
Lands Commission for registration, the Lands Commission has no means of knowing who owns that particular land.
yeah.
So, and the statistics we have indicate that 80% of our lands are vested in the customary authorities. So 80% of lands in Ghana fall either within the stool, skin, family, clan, tendana lands category. So only 20% of the lands are state lands. And so until the stools, the chiefs, the heads of families, the clan heads, the tendamba, until they prepare site plans and make some documents, and because mostly these lands are lands that have been acquired through long undisturbed occupation, they normally don't have any documents on it. They didn't buy it from anybody, they didn't get it from any chief, they got it through settlement. So normally what they do is a statutory declaration to say
Mm,
that we have been on this land for all these years. We don't owe allegiance to anybody. Nobody disturbs us in the occupation of our land. So we are averring and saying that these lands belong to us. That's what
mm,
they do. And then they attach the site plan of the land and then they go and register it at the Lands Commission. So then that becomes some form of evidence as to who is in ownership of that particular land. But where this is not done, the Lands Commission has no means of knowing who owns the land. So
okay.
that is one of the reasons why we still have vacant or no empty spaces in our land records. The second thing is also the sources of evidence that we have in the Lands Commission. Last week, I said that sometimes we have judgments, two or three judgments on the same piece of land. I said the Lands Commission records itself has been built from a variety of sources And so some of these conflict. So when you put them together, you see a very difficult maze of rights all crisscrossing, and you
mm,
don't have
mm,
easy understanding of what is happening. And so to be able to understand these things, when you do a search, sometimes the Lands Commission will tell you that this search you are doing, yes, we will provide you the information, but we will not be bound by any decision that you make based on the information that we are giving you, because they themselves are not sure. They are just telling you what the status of their records are. And that is
okay.
once again the more reason why people should not rush to buy land. If you do a search and the search result is not very clear, take your time, let people who know explain it further for you. The only lands that the Lands Commission should be able to have full records on are the state lands. And these are
Mm,
lands that have been compulsorily acquired by the government, we call them government, by the state through executive instruments. So that one, because it is the commission, that is the government that does the acquisition, they are able to have all records on
mm,
those lands, whether that land has been given or not. But even there, Mrs. Atajenfi, we have problems
mm,
because
mm,
not all the acquisitions have been completed. So you have what we call noted proposals, even in
mm.
the records of the commission. And these are intentions of government to compulsorily acquire these lands. And because of the
Doctor,
nature
if I
of
may
the
cut you, sorry for butting in, but I need to let us appreciate what you are saying. So if government itself has not finished the transactions about acquiring the land, what is the status of those lands then?
yes, so government, uh, when government is acquiring land, there are two major steps. When government declares its intention to acquire the land, it constitutes what we call the Site Advisory Committee to advise on whether the land that is to be acquired is the most suitable land for the intended purpose, let's say for a school, or there is already a government land somewhere that can be used for the same purpose. It's a lengthy process with a lot of meetings and inspection and preparation of site plan. But let me just summarize it and say that when the site selection committee meets and they confirm that this land is suitable for the acquisition and that there is no other land available or suitable for the intended use, then the Lands Commission will note it in its records that this land is noted to be acquired for this state.
Mm,
At that point, if you make any search, they will tell you, they will reveal government's intention to acquire that land. But the acquisition process has not been completed because no executive instrument has been signed on the land. It is only when an executive instrument is signed by the minister and is being gazetted that the land passes from whoever was the owner to the government. At that point, it then becomes state land. So between the time that the acquisition is noted, the intention is noted in the records of the commission, until the time that the executive instrument is signed by the minister to complete the acquisition, a lot of things can happen. And there have been instances where that phase has taken years to complete because after the site selection committee approved of the acquisition, the agency that is going to take benefit of the acquisition moved into occupation, occupied the land, and forgot completely about the executive instruments. So we've
mm,
had instances where people have fought over these lands, and you go to the Lands Commission, and all that the commission has is a noted proposal for an acquisition, and this can create problems. But otherwise, the only land that government should have complete facts about are the state lands because those ones are 100% managed and owned by the state and managed by the Lands Commission. So we have all these categories of land, and when you are going to buy land, it's necessary that you verify whether your land falls within any of these categories. If it falls within a noted proposal, you're going to have a
mhm.
lot of trouble because it may not go through until a decision on the proposal has been taken, whether the government will actually go ahead and do the acquisition or government will not pursue the acquisition and therefore relinquish its land. The noted proposal also has one very important reason, and that is once it is noted that this land has been earmarked for an acquisition, it affects the compensation that can be paid should government go ahead and acquire the land. So if the proposal is noted and you go ahead and you build on a particular any piece of that land where which has been noted in the records of the commission for acquisition, and you go ahead and build after the proposal has been noted, that is after the site selection committee has approved of it, you will not be entitled to any compensation because you are deemed to be aware that government is going to acquire the land. So it is very important that we do the searches and understand very carefully what is the status of any particular piece of land before we go ahead and acquire it. So all these categories will affect how a particular transaction is concluded.
Doctor, your very rich information is giving cause for more questions on the issues you've raised.
Yeah,
So,
if
what
we
is the
can
legal?
understand this
Patrol,
today.
say na per se yeti ase kakra ni say o kasa no kan say aban per se oji asase na me ma discuss that say aban je nsase na de ye ni me bebre Kumasi Legon ni Accra Legon ni Cape Coast Legon no na koto echampo will say ni na abaje ye de ma na ye ma ne ye nanam na eden akọ school.
Yeah.
But o kasa na me say doctor, you mentioned the say a noted proposal. And me say, and conform sa near man was such as so. And so me say, yeah, it was a penny for na no. And tia see na yen so cry lawyer for cry bo and she didn't me who Jinabia and say, and no, let's just a binding and start to so I for no any suit to me. If say, no. I'm saying, no, am I and I say, I for say, a buying can sell, person acquire. 20 years, 30 years. If you are what chesa, so now not a proposal, Nina, and that's one. And no, now him for no to one. Because then Onijina be anything.
There be say aban de ne nsa to so sɛ ɔpɛ sɛ ɔgye na wokɔtɔ a ɛnyɛ if sɛ wokɔtɔ a wonya nkrataa nea ɛsɛ sɛ ahemfo no ɛyɛ no sɛ ɛsɛ nea woka no ebi wɔ hɔ a akyɛ ebi yɛ 20 years ebi yɛ 30 years nti nea ahemfo no ɛsɛ sɛ wɔyɛ no sɛ wɔkɔ aban hɔ na wɔka kyerɛ aban sɛ asase wode nsa to so bɛyɛ 20 to 30 years ago ebedu na yɛnhu wɔn adwene ɛwɔ so nti ka kyerɛ sɛ ɔpɛ sɛ wogye a gye na tua yɛn compensation ma yɛn ɔmpɛ sɛ wogye nso a yiwu sɛ fi so na yɛmfa yɛn asase yɛn ne yɛbɛyɛ na mmom sɛ proposal no da so na wabɛka sɛ aban gye ne 30 years ago na ɔyɛ saa proposal no yɛngye ne sɛ aban bɛgye nti yɛn de yɛtɔn a wode nkurɔfo reto ɔhaw mu wonnya nkrataa a wɔyɛ a ɛbɛgo through nti sɛ nkurɔfo no to wɔn bo na wɔkɔ aban hɔ na aban no make a final decision and determination whether they will want to pursue the acquisition or they are relinquishing it so that the proposal, if the government is relinquishing the idea to acquire, then the proposal will be deleted. And then when you do a search, there will be no recorded transaction on it. And then you can go ahead and buy your land.
Okay, name say for me say yes no yenya penny bi or boy and pan into a CSC a one same in the person of Dr. Odami Labina, first no executive secretary of the Lands Commission. And now what's me what or the person name my Vital Ghana Radio. It's radio and it's a mechanic. Oh, maybe who are done for be na pese to assassinate wasumdwe. Or more than a from na yenya yensua ewo ho na se na meka no Lawyer Joyce Ataje na represent program yi na keke bi enso se na meka da bia yesua de fofo o asem se bi so ana bibitwe wadwen ana se wo so asem bi a opese wo kan lebefo na ye kan so ana de humu bi ba ana experience bi opese you'd want to share on the platform. Please feel comfortable. You just have to unmute your mic and then you can join in so that you can ask your question or tell us an experience you've had and now say contribute to the program. And yeah, doctor, I think the statement about noted proposal and no the Ukrainian na because no send I'm saying penny for no akwesi konso ojina kwenti nsa
Ojankwintia,
ban
you.
binding nsa to so nso ahon amane no na me say ye wie ye enti we de em say na me nso metimi ehu ne say aban de atudwa say wa share mpanifo lance say omombo modern ano mo fa report emfa mbra na ebe ya nsase a omunim say ehia no ban person de nsa to so na edi bia de hospital anase de ndwuma who be na ade bia future projects na ade no omoma aban yi hu na omohwe nso a aban emfa anya adwuma se na yaka note proposals ne bi na ade no mekai ba ko bi o teshi ho no military training
Mm.
grounds wo
Mm.
ho sa na ebisise entem se no de menya ho nte se aban ahye lands commission for so omohwe so betimi edi ho dwuma na so mutimi di ho dwuma de anka beboa bebre because eno no na etimi ho se we de aban asase we su de enya aban asase na ahemfo na any heads of family no ehu na se so mo ye wo ho na omatimi aton na obi so twa wanya ho asomdwe doctor we de me pacho bebre me pese obeboa en kakra epepi nkofo so ye search na ye hu ye da so hu executive instruments ne vested instruments e anti ase ne so basa ahemfo ne bi kire se ye ntwe omo compensation nti efa ekototo nsase enso ebehwe no na me se wuntimi nya ekrata nti me se eno no so obi ebeye search eye mpempi no nkofo to asase ne kra nsa na omo ye search no na ohwa na aka che ne acho ne letter so wasase ne to executive instruments be dated 1996 and answer say for sports complex for say and vested land e wo Winneba na ade na onipa kro no onye. I'm just asking doctor that although people still buy land without conducting searches, when they conduct the searches, it reveals a lot of times that their interest and transactions that relate to executive instruments being there, invested instrument. People buy them because the chiefs say they have not been paid compensation and all those things. So when that happens, what options does that buyer have? What should the person do? Doctor, if you can help us a bit with that.
Right. What I would say is that the laws that we have in Ghana on compulsory acquisition does not make the payment of compensation a condition precedent to the acquisition. Government acquires the land and takes full control and ownership of the land before the people whose rights and interests have been affected by the acquisition are enabled to put in a claim for compensation. So if government has not paid compensation for any land that has been acquired, it does not reverse the land to the original owners. The only way an executive instrument that has acquired any piece of land can be revoked is the revocation by another executive instrument. So you need another executive instrument to say that government is taking off its hands from this land, or government is varying the executive instrument to release part of the land to the original owners. Otherwise, once there is an executive instrument on the land, whether compensation has been paid or not is immaterial. So if you do any search and it tells you that this land is covered by an executive instrument, the only agency you can deal with for any documents on the land is the Lands Commission. If you go and pay any money to any chief, and the chief tells you that Abaji assassin so and your compensation into the end you are putting yourself into bigger trouble, because when you go to Lands Commission, they are going to charge you. You have encroached on government land, you will pay a penalty, and then you pay all the other development charges. That is if they agree to regularize your land for you. So if the chief tells you that government hasn't paid compensation, so we have taken our land, tell the chief that he doesn't have the power to do that. So you do that and you complicate the matters. And then the pressure is put on government as if it's government that is the bad person. But the thing is, if government has acquired your land and it hasn't paid compensation, you take government to court and go and demand your compensation. You don't take the law into your own hands and say, I'm taking my land back. You can't take it back. It's not like that. You can only get your land back through another executive instrument. So anytime you see that the land is under an executive instrument or is vested, as about Winneba lands that Mrs. Atajenfi mentioned, or Koforidua lands, for example, once it's vested, the only agency you can deal with for documents, valid documents on the land, is the Lands Commission.
Mm.
Last week, I tried to explain the position of vested lands. Currently, the law has changed, but the implementation modalities has not been put in place yet. For vested lands, there's going to be more participation from the landowners, because when land is vested in the state in trust for the landowners, the chiefs and the stools and the others, it doesn't take the ownership away. The chiefs continue to remain the owners, the custodians of the land. Government only takes responsibility for the management of those lands. So now they want to develop proper partnerships between the landowners and the government for the management of those lands. But until those modalities are put in place, the only agency you have to deal with is the Lands Commission. But if it is state land, if it is under an executive instrument, you don't deal with any chief, you don't deal with any other person other than the Lands Commission. If you go and pay any money to any chief, you do so at your own peril, because when you go to the Lands Commission and they agree to regularize, you pay penalty for it. And sometimes the penalty can be very high.
Mm. This one may be beyond our discussion, but why should it be high? Government is not able to provide accommodation and housing. So if people are going to build, why isn't that Lands Commission is able to put in the necessary things and charge something reasonable? Well, I
Well,
know,
I don't want us to discuss the
I
modalities,
know
but
that,
a lot of things
yes.
are taken into account, including jumping the queue. Because
Oh,
assuming people have queued to apply for government land and you have jumped, gone ahead, developed, and you come back and say, I've developed, so regularize it for me. It means you've jumped the queue of all those who are ahead of you to apply for government land. And for that, you must be penalized for it.
doctor, don't be using the word penalize. I mean, sometimes with all that we go through to acquire land, I think the word penalize
Well, it's a penalty.
is
Yeah,
the whole ball game. It's a whole ball game.
Yeah.
Uh, Well, so if the person has gone to buy land and it shows as an executive instrument over it, or it's a vested land, I think last week you were trying to explain, and I also have done some discussions that I think you need put in a formal application. Work to assassin if a or lands no records nature say send a doctor an executive instrument that so them say make sure say executive instrument ne abind to me or war say or no ye obi a ɔhwɛ ɔman ne so na ɔmpɛ ne yie ɛnɛ ho hyehyɛ pa no ɔde ne saa tumi no aka sɛ asase yi yɛde ba abɛyɛ adwuma wei mmienu mmiɛnsa wei ɛna adeɛ bi wɔ hɔ mfuo irrigation project akosombo dam na adeɛ nyinaa yɛde nyɛ kanea nyinaa maboroboro so biara sɛ ne nyinaa bi ne na executive instrument aban ɛde ɛyɛɛyɛ ansa na yɛtumi yɛ dɛ gyegyegye saa nsase ne yɛde yɛ mpuntundwuma a ɛma yɛ nyinaa mfasoɔ. But Dr. Me say, once the person buys the land and people buy it, what should they do? And sometimes the response from I know you are not you are not there now, but what else can people do? When they apply, they should just wait because I know there are no planning layouts. Maybe people should be being told that those places, government may not have intended it to be a residential area, so there is no planning scheme there. So maybe there's need for a planning scheme and things like that. I just want you to help us. Once you've been the boss of the place, what should people do?
Well, people should not buy government land in the first place. If they are not sure, they should ask. But if you find yourself in that situation, what you need to do is to send a petition or application for regularization to the Regional Lands Commission. Fortunately, there are regional lands commissions in all the regions. The new regions, the additional 6 that were created, they are now setting up regional offices. But I'm sure by the end of this year, there will be regional lands commissions for all the 16 regions. And then they manage these applications at the regional level. So you send an application to the Regional Lands Commission with a copy of the site plan and explain how you came by the land. They will go and do an inspection, first and foremost, to see what is happening on the land. and then they will refer it to the planning authorities. Just as Mr. Tajenfi said, they need to be sure that what they are going to approve for you, if they decide to approve, will not fall within a river course, will not fall within a restricted area, will not fall within any special area that development cannot be allowed. They will check all that, and then they will also confirm whether there is a planning scheme in the area. More often than not, the problem is that because it's state land and the state has not intended to use it for residential purpose, for example, you've built a house on it. Because you have built a house on it, does not turn the area into a residential area. If there is no planning scheme, if there is no layout for that area, converting the area into a layout, a residential area, then the planning authority will be find it very difficult to say that your development falls within an approved planning scheme. And the commission will then say that, well, if there is no planning scheme in the area, they will have to make a decision. This is an area that government acquired for, say, a secondary school. You've gone to encroach on a portion of it. Na sɛ yɛde ɛhɔ ma wo ne yɛka sɛ si wo dan wɔ hɔ a na kyerɛ sɛ yɛma kwan na nkurɔfoɔ nso esisisi wɔn dan wɔ hɔ sɛ ɛnyɛ wo nko ara na school asase no bɛkɔ akɔsi wo dan na watena school asase no so nti na sɛ yɛhwɛ kwan a yɛbɛfa so a yɛbɛtwa kakra na yɛde ɛhɔ no ama nkurɔfoɔ no ama wɔatumi asisisi wɔn adan. In doing that takes a lot of time because you have to plan the area, you have to survey the area, and then sometimes you have to take into account what the original intention for the acquisition was. And sana way to me planners let to me a scheme biaba. Na a scheme no ba and sana lands commission no to me so allocation amount. If say every allocation that the commission does must conform to a planning scheme. Otherwise, they themselves will also be flouting their own laws. Usually a whole other problem no ban. In application, once any planning scheme be you have no basis for considering the application. Inti anka government land de ubenya ho anka wonton ko ho kura because na ho sam no ye wonai and yet it is very easy to encroach on government land because aban no lands commission for na wo hwe aban sase so no one offices no ewo regional offices na ebia wakofa asase no let's say nkoko lands commission in new office nkoko obai what's a vested land and a government land. Commission ni honti and yada no hu encroachments are air cost or honum. Into we no obi anim into better lands commission one once any planning scheme bia or into ya in ye into na da ho the answer da ho to so be planning scheme no into men ton ko bo modern na ye search no na you sure say nea wokwa koto no ebeboa in your own interest for your own peace and security. Na woyɛ ne saa woto bo na unya papa ɛyɛ na ɛboa mpempi no. Let me talk a little bit about stool lands also. We run into the same challenges because some of the stool land areas too are not schemed, they are not planned, and so the chiefs keep on selling the lands and people buy the lands, but na leeway kakra the planners can write and say that we don't have any planning scheme there yet, but we've taken note of this intended development that this person intends to develop that place into a residential area. So anytime that we will scheme the place or we will prepare a scheme for the place, we will take the intended development into consideration. On that basis, the Lands Commission may give you approval and then you can continue with your documentation. But otherwise, it's very difficult if there's no planning scheme for any particular area for the Lands Commission to go ahead and regularize. And that is one of the reasons why many encroachments on government lands have not been regularized, simply because there are no planning schemes.
Oh, Doctor, thank you so much for that explanation. Thank you so much for that explanation, because that seems to be the bottleneck why people put in the application and then it seems Lands Commission is not able to go ahead, and even if it has to charge, or I don't want to use the word penalty, or they have to charge or ask you to pay something. I think we should use that word, pay something. We are still not
Oh
able to
no,
go
Joyce.
ahead.
When you flout law, you are penalized. It's as simple as that. You are a lawyer. Why are you afraid to say?
No, I'm not.
People are penalized.
A lawyer
Definitely.
plays both roles. You plead the cause of your client and you uphold the law too. So at the moment, I'm pleading the cause of my clients.
Okay.
So listeners and viewers, I hope you are getting good information and benefiting from what we are discussing. Like I said, when you have the information, it helps you to be able to at least be at rest that yes, I may have bought land. I haven't got the documents that are required by law, but now I know the reason why. So then you can patiently wait. So I think it's so important that we are appreciating these points on it. Doctor, I think sometimes too there are still more issues that come up. I mean, you take your land, you buy the land, you forward your application for processing, and sometimes you don't get responses. Why? In addition to the judgment and the executive instruments, what are some of the reasons to that cause delays in processing applications at land agencies? Because that is it. When people put in the application, immediately they would want to have some timelines, as it is in other places. That okay, this is going to take 1 week, 1 month, and yeah, by the time I'm saying that definitely the other countries where we are, UK, US, and all the other places, we know they have had more to do with digitizing their processes, so it is easier. But I thought we also have made some progress or something like ours. There's not, even if we say 1 year, there's still no guarantee that within the 1 year you will still get your document. Doctor, can you help us to know why these things come about?
Um, Mr. Tajefi, there are two main reasons. There is the front office processes, and then there is the back office processes. The front office processes represent the interface between the Lands Commission and the public. And that is where the communication between the commission and the public should take place. So we expect that if there are any issues, the front office currently being operated through the CSAU, the Client Services Access Unit, should be able to relay the information as quickly as possible to you, so that if there are issues for you to rectify on the document, you can do that. But I think it's now better. People receive SMS messages about reception of their documents, and others, when the documents are ready, searches are ready, they receive prompts to come and pick it. So at least we are doing that. But in the course of processing documents at the Lands Commission, there are so many steps that are involved. The first one is they will check the site plan, the quality and of the site plan, whether it meets the survey standards. If it doesn't meet the survey standards, it will be rejected. So when it is rejected, for example, the Client Services Access Unit is expected to then alert you and say that your document has been queried. So come and take it and rectify. If they don't, then your document is lying there, and you think that you have submitted your document to the Lands Commission and it's being worked on. Meanwhile, it's been queried and put aside. So they will check that, the plan. They will check against existing transactions, against government land. If it is government land, immediately to be rejected, they will have to return it to you because it's government land. So they can't continue. So they will have to write to you to say that your transaction falls within government land, and so your document is rejected. If they don't write to you, you think that your document has been there and that it's being processed. So if it is against government land, it will be rejected. If it's against other existing transactions, for example, if there is a judgment that has determined who actually owns that piece of land, and your document, you didn't get it, it wasn't signed by the person who has been judged the owner, it will also be rejected, and then it will have to be returned to you. So at any point in time, when they do any check and there is an issue, there is a query, it doesn't conform to the principles and to the records at the commission, it will be rejected, and then they will have to communicate with you. So it is that is where the problem is, the level or the rate at which it is communicated. In many of the instances, because of our attitude towards work, sadly to say. People will just file the document and put it aside until you go and follow it up, and then they will tell you that it's been queried. They will not take the liberty to write to you. And as I said, I think gradually we are improving. We will get there. It takes time. We need to change the people's mindset, the attitude towards work and other things, and also assist with automation, which gradually they've started. At the moment, they're trying to automate the searches. So eventually we'll get there. But that is what happens to people's documents. Any point along the processing route, if there are any issues that do not conform to the laid down procedures and the principles and the records, it will be queried, it will be rejected. And then the person whose document it is will have to be called upon to come and withdraw the document, go and rectify whatever query that has been raised on it, and resubmit. So that is why many of the documents delay. Many of them have been queried. They are waiting for the applicants to come and pick their documents, and sometimes you don't use. And now let me also say this. One most important thing that we realize in the processing of documents is the address that people use. As I said, people just tell their friends, "Oh, you just use do go ahead and do it for me." Sansan krata na mami, what the sansan krata na mami. Inti nipa kona uja wechi mano no, ono de ni postal address na ode aye documents no. No de sansan afele nkrata na ma. Inti se query bi ba na nipa kona anko lance ho ankoje, memfa se won atwero letter na won posta. E kwa koda ne box mu. Enya wo box na bekwa kodam e bekwa koda ne box mu nse nipa kono yo bi a on sheda nkohwe ne box na letter ne da honom sometimes bekwa kofa kora na ne werafi say eye wo de ase wo di hu dwuma ma nti address na ye throw e won krata na chi na eye very 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 important. Let's always make sure we provide the most accurate address at which we can be reached if the commission needs to reach us. Otherwise, they all cause delay. Thank you.
Thank you. And to add to what you've just said, I think now it is required that people bring in their telephone numbers, sometimes their emails. We are now in the digital ages, so definitely we all know that these things too are being done by the land agencies. Doctor, I also think I would support you a bit by saying that sometimes to the causes of the delay too, like we said, they don't consult us because they think we are going to charge so much money. And we'll continue saying it. Sometimes you see people buy land for so much, thousands of dollars, and then maybe they didn't consult a lawyer. So then the whole thing goes down the drain. I keep encouraging you on this program that please do consult a lawyer. Otherwise, it's like penny wise, pound foolish. You put in all those money and then because some basic things, people write their names and it is in a very common one I've discussed before, Mr. and Mrs. Odamilabi. It will be queried because the law specifies that it should be written out clearly, Mr. So and so, and then Mrs. And the last time we were talking about the law saying that we require the consent of our spouses.
Yeah.
So now a man can have, if it's not bigamy, there can be 2 or 3 Gemfis. So if your name is Mr. and Mrs. Gemfi, it is not known whether it is Joyce or a new person who has now become Mr. Gemfi or Mrs. Labi. So if there is nobody, that it is incomplete. We need to know whether it is Joyce Ata Gemfi, because there could be another relationship, which is maybe Mary Ata Gemfi. So sometimes just these basic information, and you see so many people writing Mr. and Mrs. Gemfi or Mr. and Mrs. Labi, Mr. and Mrs. Odami Labi, and it will be queried. And like we are saying, because friends do these things for us or prosics, it goes to lie down. And as far as you are concerned, it is because of what the Lands Commission is not doing this work. When you contact a lawyer, and I said, even if you are not able to contact a lawyer, you feel confident and go to the land agencies. Now there are client services access unit. Ask to talk to any senior officer or ask to talk to any of the lawyers. ask to talk to the head of the department. They are such pleasant people. They will help you, or they'll direct you to the appropriate office where you will get the needed help. Like I'm saying, we are all discussing, we are all seeking this information so that we can reduce the risks to the minimum level. And then, like doctor said, if you have even gone to buy these things, once you have the information, it will help you and guide you as to, the waiting period that is involved, whether you need to just abort the transaction and go on with something else. If you are equipped or you're empowered to know what you have to do. Our time is almost up until we can able to ask our producer opinion to give us a bit more time to go ahead with our discussions. But I don't know, Doctor, if he would agree to a final sequel to it, so we can tie the knots, and then we would know that all the information that we require, we have been able to get it. I think there is something here. Somebody wants to have.
I see two issues in the private chat. The first one, lawyer, you are vested in land issues, but I must confess, it sounds easier theoretically than its practicality. Yes, we know that it is very confusing when we try to explain things this way. That is why we are providing as much information as possible. We've already mentioned that the very nature of the subject matter that we are talking about doesn't lend itself to simplicity, and that's why you need to be guided in handling it. And so we can only explain what happens. The practicality will depend on the merits of each case. But what we are saying is to provide as much information as possible so that people will be guided, people will understand what the processes are. We cannot say everything on air, but at least we're trying to talk about the building blocks to make people understand what the crux of the matter is. But yeah, definitely we agree with you. When we say it like this, it sounds so easy and so straightforward, but on the ground, it's not that straightforward. It can be very frustrating. We've all gone through the frustrating experiences. And at the beginning, Mr. Satajemfi said that even all of us have bought lands and run into problems. I know very senior officers at the Lands Commission right now who have built houses without documents. They themselves couldn't get their documents through. So it's a bigger issue that we are all confronted with. And the more we talk about it and provide the information, the better it is for us to understand exactly what is happening in our country and how to cope with it. The second one is, I'm trying to acquire a land in Ghana. The registration process has begun. Is it too late to give a power of attorney to my rep in Ghana? Maybe this one, Mrs. Satajemfi, being the lawyer, will address it. I would say no, it's never too late, but maybe Mrs. Satajemfi will address that.
Well, I think it may not be necessary now, because the power of attorney is to give the person certain powers to act on your behalf. The contract has been signed, the documents executed. What is being done now is procedural. And if it was we had a bit of a digitized environment, you would have all the information that you require. So this is like a afterthought. It is not necessary now, unless no, I don't see the major thing that the person that you give the power of attorney to will be doing now. I don't know what powers you're going to give to the person now to do what, just to follow up the processes. I don't think it is necessary now. But if you were going to start the transaction, then definitely you needed the power of attorney to give the person the required powers so that he can stand in for you, make payments, execute documents on your behalf, discuss issues that are relevant, go to the site and all those things, and the person would have been representing you. So I think what is just required is that you have ask for your particulars. Anytime a document is submitted to a government office, you are given the necessary acknowledgements, a letter, a receipt for payment done, or and the Client Services Access Unit now, we have the acknowledgement number, or they call it the job number. So once you have the job number, you can make the inquiries anytime you would want to. You can give it to a friend, you can give it to a brother, and with that job number, it becomes like a passport number or a hospital card number. Once you take it there, the required information will be given to you. Openia, I don't know, can we have a few more minutes to wrap up? I just want to, Doctor, to just touch on one more subject before we round it up for today. Can we have a few more minutes? Or we continue next week? Okay, Doctor, I think because if you would agree to do a final one with us next week, I have a few issues that I would want the viewers and listeners to know a bit more about the judgments, because it is not that you see only one judgment on a search report. After getting the search report, it leaves you more confused than when you even went in for the search report. So, God willing, next week, I think we would look at the judgments and maybe how to go round it. You can find 2, 3, 4, 5 judgments relating to one piece of land, and you invariably you don't know who you should say you should go and contact. And we would also look a bit about the process of preparing a power of attorney, because since people still buy lands whilst they are out of the country, in places where we all are, Delaware, the length and breadth of US, UK, Canada, and all those things, it's important that we know a bit more about power of attorney so that we would know what it is that we are supposed to tell those who act on our behalf, or what we are supposed to legally give them to empower them to know what they have to do.
So I think you have a lot of people, so you can add like 15 more minutes to it.
Okay.
Yes, so many. There were a lot of people trying to get in. Those people who weren't able to get in, forgive us, because we only take 10 people at a time.
So I think then they would have to be listening in.
Yeah.
They would have to be listening in, and if you have questions, you either can send it to the producer, so that next week when we come, we can either read them out or try and see if we can answer them, or you can call on my WhatsApp line, and if you have your pens ready, you can take the number 0264 257 030. My WhatsApp number is 0264 257 030. Well, Doctor, our producer has given us a few more minutes, and I think we still want to see how we can let people know that, well, after whatever it is, and they've been able to buy the land, the issues that keep coming up. I just mentioned judgments, and I know I should be addressing the issues a bit more on judgments, but if a search comes up with all these judgments, once you are boss, everything is attributed to you. So what options are available to a person who buys land, and on the search report all these things come up?
Well, it depends on how his particular transaction fits into the judgment. The judgments are at various levels. So if there is a Supreme Court judgment on the land, that would take precedence overall. But again, in many of the situations, for the things that the time that I was in the Lands Commission, one of the things we realized was, what were we recording as judgments? It's not all the judgments that were for determination of title, but so far as two people were fighting over a piece of land, and they went and they got some judgment, some resolution by the court, they bring it and say, I've got judgment. And we recorded all of them as determination of title. I think that's one of the mistakes that we made earlier on when we were recording all judgments. So for each judgment, you need to really understand, what is the judgment about? Was it for a determination of title, and therefore a particular group of people or person was declared to be the owner of the land or not? So if the judgment is for determination of title, and there are 2, 3, 4 judgments on the same land that are all on determination of title. So Judge A gave the land to Mr. B, Judge C gave the land to Mr. D, Judge E gave the land to Mr. Z, then obviously we have a problem. And especially if they are all coming from the same cognate level of the courts, they are all high court judgments, then one doesn't supersede the other. But if you have a Supreme Court judgment on determination of title, then that takes precedence. And that shows that these people have been acclaimed to be the owners of the land. And if you got your document from that particular root of title, then you are covered because that's a Supreme Court judgment on determination of title. But if it's for other things that went to the court, maybe they were fighting as to who should be the chief, and they one got judgment, and then they bring it to the commission and say, by commission, Mr. Asumesi should be the chief, and it's not necessarily on determination of title, then that issue still stands, that the title to the land has not been determined, and therefore, possibly, if they're receiving a high court judgment on determination of title, that could stand. So it is very confusing, and it's very difficult to talk about judgments here without looking at specific ones. But what I would say is, anytime there are 2 or 3 judgments, these are things that ordinary mortals like us will never understand unless you go to a lawyer. That is the most reason why you have to go to a lawyer and let the lawyer take his time to go through all the judgments and look at the nuances and what the judgments were about and help you throughout. Don't let us run into difficulties before we go and look for a lawyer. Let us start with the lawyer and let us go on. But judgments mean that take a closer look at the issues again. That's what I would say. When you go and say there's any judgment on the land, take a closer look. Take your time. Take one step backwards. Try and understand what that particular judgment is before you venture further. Just be aware that any group of people who are desirous of selling land will always tell you their side of the story to look sweet. So even they will tell you that we have a judgment, and you may read the judgment, and sometimes you read the judgment, you can't make a head and tail out of it because of the nature of the issue that was determined. When I was on the lab, there were 2 one judgment on a piece of land in Prong and half for Sekwa land. The day the judgment was given, the following day, first faction rushed to the office and came and gave it to us that they've got judgment. 3 days later, the other also brought the same judgment and said they've also been declared the judgment creditors. So we read the whole thing, and we also couldn't make a head and tail out of it. The judge took a middle position. They didn't want to offend any group because there were 2 big dominant stools fighting over the same piece of land. And so in such a situation, what do? It's very difficult. Our customary land administration requires a lot of understanding, careful analysis, serious research. We need a lot of commitment and guidance from the courts, because eventually they will be the ones to make pronouncements on this, and we should allow them. But if you go to do any search and you see judgment, please take one step back, don't rush, and study the judgment carefully before you decide to go forward. There is somebody, Mami Canada, who says he has or she has a question. How do they ask a question?
Oh, Mami Canada, welcome and good to see you on the program again. Please unmute your mic.
I have a question.
Okay, please, you can ask a question. Yes.
Thank you. I did. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes,
please
we
go
can
ahead.
hear you.
Okay. So the question that I want to ask, okay, how long does it take to register your property in Ghana, especially Accra? So we process, how long does it take?
Doctor, this one, I think I would hold brief for you. Mami Canada, I think we're just discussing, say, issues, it's a bit difficult to give timelines. Now, client access units now, and as our government the state have tried, say, a bit of timelines, but as time has gone on, so timelines. And at the moment, the Mecca say, won't mean Catherine Chemo say, what do documents acquire a bit take 1 year now say 2 years. But a query be any so na process net me so the way it is expected, and now one after the other. Averagely, no, within 6 months to about 9 months, and then I documenting all things being equal. No, let me say, what me will process, and now we, as I may explain to say, yeah, various offices, nankasa edosu, ebi wo ho na sa assassin stool lander. If you see a office now, some time ago, Mikaye, that used to be the lands department, lands commission, as you say, your friend, public invested land management division. Ho ebe call me akwakoye adwuma was so ansana aba land registry. Enti esese ewie wo ho ansa. Ebi so ho na wasase na state housing asase a. Esese o call na akoye ho adwuma e was state housing. Omoma on consent and also omoma ho krata ansana aba public invested lands ho no mo so my dey upload it ansana aba land registration division. Enti se obi say time be na area depending on the agency e wono ebi enu be na adwuma e dey awie and ansana about the other agency. But in Kransa said my catch them will say this is when your land certificate just when we crack into like state housing records be would meet your rent would do be a search or what a very review would do or buy a public invested land management division and so and also records be or yes search or what a very review would do, but it still does not give you the right, it doesn't confer on you title.
Yeah.
This is what land registration division about the registration process. It's my mechanic that say may encourage you and I keep saying it every time I come. They said, "More the man and no harm be." Like I said, the new law has come into has been passed. If any legislative instruments and as enabling instruments, a bit so many things are going to change. And one of our documents now,
okay,
there may be some things and there oku de kwa nka yebetimi ayama or child de kwa yentimi nyama into you there my enfanko o documents me enfanko enfantum and no there no it is like you are already in the system. It's the new nyama craba. Now as we can all know, no say everybody's trying to do things better, and better means more controls. Enti ebi wa ne maybe anka first na yetimi ye anase with enti osa enti sa say enti we just encourage so me infantum na say na kind so me can sometimes o de kwa every day just ask for the receipts who you payment o de bisa the working allowance ne de anase na o de man say fa ko anase jifaye na sese we de that's okay, but o coin o trace ke bia je receipts no because no o china bi no eno ne wo evidence anase ne krata obetua obekra obeka say oh me krata yi ba ha me receipt me tua ye ni with that little receipt na obetimi who the needed information obetimi further inquiries. But so we just a trial asa no nipa ko no keep documents na ade ni na ebi o hayi na nipa ayira o ka mu aye say na sometimes so kwa nema no ko ebi na abobo nipa ko no so na aye basa na wo asasene wo de no won hye de ni krata o kina bi betimi aba na nka ye pese ebo a okra de yetimi bo a bit of digitization so aya yenti no so wutimi nya acknowledgement job number and acknowledgement number no. And once it is fed into the system, information be a woman, it will come up. It will come up. Into my Canada, my how be doing say averagely 9 months. But I know they didn't say yeah, but you will be obey all the documents be on your own phone call. Even if it is the old type of documents, I bet you say be on barcoded plan and found to so in church any beba because one year that or chinepino. What the kind of properties on the mouth banner dear crime is like what settle them with more problems than you'd have liked than the blessing
because
that you wish
the reason I'm
to
me wadam phobia or lending or say 5 years in the process didn't go through 5 years and she's also in a position now she doesn't want to know like oh judge we can say or train I mean information I'll pass it on.
Okay, before doctor comes in short, if the doctor tried to explain and say
property
taking
5 years.
There may be a reason. There's always a reason why maybe it's not completed. Sometimes it's so there are so many land certificates lying there for MFI. And to honor the oba, money presume say be a real nasi in way on the uncle, but they also can no need the needed documents receipt and acknowledgement sheet paper or the beko no obe follow
Okay.
up no oba down anytime or no the onko okra site plan
Okay.
documents ni dia the person will be able to help him.
Okay.
Somebody will be able to help him. Why? Doctor, please, you
Okay.
can give the
So
final
me,
word so that we will.
Yeah,
maybe say
na
doctor asem kakra am sana wako.
Pacho mame wie madam
Oh,
Nadi
okay.
nefi
All
na
right.
yenka no kakra me de beka ho ne say say na me say yen bi kan e bi kura na ya query document ne da ho ka kire ne say ombo modern na ombisa da bia document ne du bit ko de poten a wo hwehwe wo ho why has it stalled e bi okura ne da until we know sad na your process until we must understand and know which part of the process it has got to into a agile no ebia na what twen kra na or the first surveyors na akọ site ho nti say on coin ko first surveyors na they wouldn't know what side they are talking about until we know exactly at what point in the process it has stalled. No, it's very difficult to try and help her. Why in there no be some information as to exactly the bia edu who is following up. Sometimes in crofona documents ma on kra no no eja no de akoto ne drawer mu na ne refi o ese mi ko hu asomasi or the mene ochna so many issues and so many problems associated with the way we do things. But if we get more information, just saying say 5 years will not help, but you exactly what's to say, then we'll be able to resolve it.
Thank you, Doctor.
So,
Opini.
so yeah. Me bisa doctor Asemba ko ansana yebeko. It's about 15 years ago. And so I check no more I think about 20 years ago. Na so mbekaya na in Saum Canary, one war asasi bi war between in Saum and Accra, mean kai that particular Enze Pokuasi.
Yeah.
Na Pokuasi, yes. Na asasi no one time Obo hene, I don't know, say whatever no ba a beton and asasi no my it all just one 4x4, which is 1 acre.
Yeah, but 1 acre. Okay. What the
Yeah.
Okay, about an acre. Now, one turns as and Obia was able to do something on the land. But time maybe do me so me call a honor. After the na I didn't acquire two different things. Just say wouldn't mean who where I am for be say a one sassy and we don't say one sassy. Until we were caught between these two people do two functions. No, them say me explain it. Lawyer say one time be anke hono. Say yeah, police ni be an be na chime ya and by this time be grand kamawu because immediately could do hono pepe na langas if we were. And once a year then hanam so maybe him assassin. And also assassin in Yamudia. Na a ni one assassin. And I'm so documents and you just say ni see a gun if you police ni kura catch say look me enko and son of fret him say pokwasi police because of catch say there's something here just say pursue pokwasi police for immediately because one will code be a won't catch on and yeah within a short time no na one by and I just won't be rescue yen. If brought this thing, what do I do? Do I have to leave it because I don't think say to me, no, if a person but the ecosystem say no, I don't think say meet me crack or who assassin would be the me who you
Nana 20 years they actually say some canary assassin bidia. It's a bit more complex because in some cannery in Sasinankasa are buying air quiet to support the some factory. And then later on, the cannery was divested under the divestiture implementation committee. What means they privatize it from government into private lands. Emma private investor be edgy. And when some be pre, me wala be pre regarding what actually was sold out of some cannery. In Sasama ye can be na Sassini be me sure se pokwasi di beka one of the noted proposals. No, not any one acquisition. No, there was a large area now noted to be acquired to support the cannery, but they never went ahead to complete the acquisition. Into what tons as we know. The purchasers felt say once it's been noted and the intention was to give them that land, they think it's part of the land that they bought. And the confusion be by. I don't know how it's been resolved now. I still think Kufuor Lands Commission is still handling it. Maybe exactly what is happening. But if yours fall within the cannery there, then it's a complex issue that is still not yet fully resolved. But if it is between two chiefs who are fighting now, then we need to find out exactly what the status is at the moment. Unfortunately, the menace of langas na how be brave. Yeah, GD said new law now, what they about now, outlaw langas. We will all be able to work with it and ensure some sanity is brought into the system. But it's a little bit more complex, and until we get a bit more information, to be difficult to offer a specific solution.
Thank you.
And I think you would also need at least in America, the most important thing in any land document is the site plan. And to our site plan, it will be a search would reveal exactly and what relates to it. And then they say a buyer starts then it is a him for maybe anana omokakano. If you are what you're explaining, they think they have a claim, but in law, no, they may not have it. Or make sure no. And to say documents view or so a site plan now, at least it would help. And then can say you bet me investigations further. Why?
Maybe me koya there is, and I don't even know where.
Document
a waste of time because one way okay you be cooking just a share that go because now my suitcase be me call Ghana no it is a suitcase in some him they were hot there. I don't know
now the money I receive it said Nana I saw a question. Sometimes who to ask at Lance is a problem, and if you don't pay bribe, forget it. Nana I also say the name is Sakakra. Your client access services unit now. The people there have been trained to provide the information, and gone were those days. Now do last department and now you just don't even know where to start from. There was no front office and there was no back office. And many people fell victim of fraudulent transactions. But say your client's services access unit until you go there and the head there is a very nice lady. She will provide all the information and assist you. There's another one. Is it possible someone or a family's name cannot be at land registration or survey where the registration starts, but the name is at the land title? Yes.
Discussion.
Yeah. Yes, but the simple answer is yes, because of the way land titling was introduced into Ghana. Until we have that parallel system that worked initially.
And I hope you'll be part of us next week. Doctor, Doctor was trying to give a bit of the historical antecedents now there. And James or started giving the historical background that any land registration division. And so be a public invested land and other agencies. No? And that is a story that will be told next week. And then I am say, we make it time no wait you. And James said, your time at the no. But it's been time well spent. Yes. Well spent. See, on that note, Doctor, I would want to say another big thank you for your time and the vast resource that you've made available to us, the questions that you have answered, the explanations, clarifications. And we are really very grateful. And the assurance, I said next week we'll be able to have another time with you, hopefully to conclude the discussions. Can we have that word from you?
Yes, I'll make myself available.
Okay. Thank you so very much. On that note, I would also want to say all those who joined us either by Zoom or listen in, keep listening. Like I say, information is power. And the more information you have, the more control you have about the issues that beset you, especially issues on land in Ghana. On that note, I wish you the very best. And like I always will keep saying, let's all keep hope alive. See you all next week. Goodbye.
All right,
See
thank
you.
you all.
Bye.
The moon
Bye.
doc any lawyer. Ochina, we said who can say be sometime be about say a mass so won't me worry me no. Say South Africa one pass that law no say a mass me worry me
Wow.
no. You know, Ochina and a mammy Canada so will be a Rebecca Hunt. Yes, one more so no. Somebody say a good idea, say, oh, Baba, worry me, no, and it, you know, China, Mumwa, na you solve our problem.
And then, the names on the site, where that information is coming from. Is it the law and as a cultural practice?
Oh,
It's very interesting information.
your
Next week,
website, your website, it's a law I want to pass in South Africa.
Really, a law?
Yeah.
Anyway, doctor, the last time I was trying to ask, I said, now why should a man be able to have more than one wife? No, but don't be more than one husband.
The simple answer is that a man who doesn't seem very man. You just can say.
Mama Canada, we'll make sure that we won't talk on that. Whether it's right or wrong. Also very nice.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Bye.
Don't get bored alone, when there are existing channels that can keep you company anywhere, anytime. VitalGH Media is a mother company of all VitalGH channels. We have multiple platforms for free television. You can watch video on demand, rent or buy, or probably subscribe easily for more update. Visit our channels on